Hello everyone, my name is Lucas and it's been a while, but I'm back with another video. Things have been a little different lately. I've had to add a roommate to my place as things have kind of gotten a little struggle bus because, you know, economy. So if you hear things going on in the back room, that's either them or the cat. But enough about me, let's get into today's video. So, today we're going to be delving into my Germanic and Scandinavian practice, because what we're going to be talking about today is Fylgja, and I'm super excited. Welcome back, everyone. As I said, today we're going to be talking about Fylgja. So when people kind of start out within paganism and witchcraft, they often receive kind of numerous warnings telling them to stay away from spirit work as much as possible. There's apparently all sorts of inherent dangers, such as imposters, tricksters, malevolent spirits. There's lots of ooky spooky stuff that goes on, and that's not to say that those things aren't true. You should always be cautious and protect yourself, but not all spirits are out there to get you, and some can actually be very helpful, and Fylgja is one of them. Unfortunately, these kinds of warnings tend to scare people away from starting, which is actually a shame because it can be such a fulfilling practice. So if you're wanting to incorporate spirit work into your practice in kind of a risk-free way, then starting with your Fylgja can be a great choice. So what are they? Well, Fylgja originate within the Scandinavian and Germanic cultures of Europe. So that would be Norway, Denmark, Germany, like all of that area. Think your Vikings, your Norse, your heathens, that kind of thing. So Fylgja are a type of spirit that accompanies us throughout our lives. They are often seen as animals that walk beside us as we traverse our life here within the physical world. They're extensions of ourselves, giving them no real reason to want to hurt us, which makes them a great place to dive into spirit work. So the Scandinavians believed, a lot like me, in the concept of animism. The idea that everything in the world, including objects, people, and nature itself, is alive and has a soul. They believed that the soul was not just a singular thing, but was multifaceted, composed of numerous parts functioning together to create a whole. And a Fylgja is considered to be a part of that. So a Fylgja is deemed to be both a part of you and separate from you, linked to you in a way that governs your fate or destiny. They often act as guides to help you through the trials of life and bring you to where you need to be. So that's kind of like a basic description. I'm going to go into a little bit more detail further in the video. So, if they're spirits that manifest as animals, what's the difference between them and other similar entities such as animal spirits, familiars, and indigenous totem animals? Are they the same thing? Well, Fylgja have similarities to each, but they are different from all three. Your everyday animal spirit tends to be the soul of an animal that has passed on from the physical world. Or it can be a manifestation of a larger personified archetype that's basically an amalgam of everything that animal was, will, or will be, which kind of differs from a Fylgja, because most Fylgja were never alive. They were never a physical being, is a good way to describe it. So familiars, also similar, are spirits that are either found or created by a practitioner to aid them in their magical workings. So familiars can come in all shapes and forms and will sometimes appear as animals. But it often depends on what type of spirit you come across or create. So familiars often operate through contracts and have no prior connection to the practitioner until the contract or relationship is established. While some aspects of familiars and Fylgja are similar, Fylgja sometimes operating very similarly to a familiar, Fylgja are a part of us and not separate. They've always been with us and will always appear as animals, as opposed to a familiar, which can be any type of spirit and is often stumbled across or contacted separately. So the closest thing that I've come to a Fylgja is an indigenous totem animal, but they also differ fundamentally. There are significant kind of cultural differences, as totem animals are often associated with families or tribes and are passed on to future generations, as opposed to Fylgja, which are often like person specific. Not to mention that indigenous totem animals are often a closed practice, as opposed to Fylgja, which all but a few kind of extreme people deem to be open to all. So we've kind of established what a Fylgja's basic description is and what they're not, but let's dive in a little deeper to what they are. So to begin to understand what a Fylgja is a little bit more in depth, we can begin by looking at what the word actually means. So in Proto-Germanic, Fylgja, spelled here on the screen, stems from the word Fylgjana, which means to accompany or walk beside. There are also similar words such as Fylgji, with the same root word, meaning to combine by law or fate. These can kind of give us some clues as to who or what they are. Now, some folklorists have also found some associations between the word Fylgja and the word for afterbirth or placenta. And through this have made some connections to the Dis, female gods, spirits, and ancestors that watch over a family and deal with their luck, fate, and destiny, which has some really interesting and exciting connotations. So let's dive into the kind of meat of that. So, it is believed by many folklorists and reconstructionists that a Fylgja is the spirit or soul of the afterbirth. Something that grew alongside us and is connected to us as equal part of us as it is separate from us. And here we can begin to see why it might have close ties to the Dis, these female ancestors that govern over our fate and our families. So within the body, the placenta acts as a gateway organ, attaching to the mother so oxygen and nutrients can pass between mother and fetus. And in a way, the placenta and the Fylgja act as a bridge, connecting us back to our mother and by extension of her to all of the women that came before them, which is really kind of like cool to think about. It's a really interesting concept. Now there isn't a lot of like actual historical evidence to suggest this, other than a few kind of obscure mentioning of the two spirits together. But I like to think that these concepts tie together well, specifically by looking at these things and creating your own connections. If you don't believe the same thing, that's fine. That's just my personal way of viewing things. But to me, the evidence is strong, and that's what I choose to think. So, they're a type of spirit that appears as an animal. They walk beside us, they're possibly connected to the Dis, and are linked to our fate. But what is their purpose? What do they do? And how do they help us? So, one of the primary goals of a Fylgja is to act very similarly to a fetch found within Irish folklore. They deliver signs and omens. So within the old stories and sagas, when a Fylgja is seen in the real world, it's often just moments before someone's death. So for example, a warrior on the battlefield is fighting for his life. and he sees out of the corner of his eye a large bear, his Fylgja, and it's standing off clear as day, as if it wasn't a real and actual bear. And it just stands there watching him. In this moment, the warrior would then know that this battle would most likely be their last, and that their death was imminent. Or, another example would be, the warrior's spouse sits at home, waiting for them to return from battle. They fear they may not return, and one morning step through the doorway and see a large bear there before them, clear as day. This is the warrior's Fylgja. The bear then turns and walks away calmly and disappears into the day. Having seen it, they fall to the ground, knowing that their spouse will never return. So we can see them acting a bit like banshee or washerwomen from the Celtic culture, signaling the death of someone, either that person or a beloved family member, tying them to the end of their life. Which is really fascinating. Another way that Fylgja interact with us and help us throughout our lives is they often act as guides and messengers for the gods or for the Norns or the Fates. So Fylgja have also been recorded appearing in the dreams of heroes and kings. So within those dreams, Fylgja would come and speak to their person, offering them advice or leading them down a path that fate had designed. Or conversely, you can see them acting as a warning that the gods had decided the fate of the person, and no matter how hard they struggled against that design, what was written was inevitable. Another interesting purpose that they serve is to act as a bridge to our animalistic self, for the use of shape-shifting. So shape-shifting is a spiritual and magical practice in which the practitioner takes on traits and attributes of an animal to bring understanding and connection to the world around them, and to also aid in their magic. So there are some speculation that Fylgja are tied to the berserker warriors of legend. Now, these legendary warriors fought with the strength, cunning, and fury of beasts. There is some speculation that the berserkers were turning into or taking on the attributes of their Fylgja in the heat of battle. They would call forth their strength to aid them in times of war and ensure their survival in the battle ahead. There are also several stories of old kings and heroes physically turning into an animal, often in times of need, to defeat their enemies and fulfill whatever destiny the gods had set before them. So we can speculate that the animals that these people were turning into and or pulling from were most likely their Fylgja. So how do you find out what your Fylgja is? Well, one way the ancients used to tell what was to observe signs or omens in the real world. Once a child was born, they would take the afterbirth and place it somewhere remote. Once kind of set in that position, they would stand vigil over it and see what animals came and interacted with it. It was said that the first animal that would either eat or show interest in it would be a physical representation of what the Fylgja of that child would be. I know in today's world that's probably not very feasible. So if you're looking to connect with what your Fylgja is and find out, I would suggest trying meditation, trance work, and journeying. When attempting to contact them, set up your protections and wards, do what you normally do going into that kind of working, and set your intention and call out to them. Let them know that you're looking for them, and then go into a meditative state or trance and seek them out. Now, it's always essential to say, whilst doing this, have no preconceptions. Don't force anything. Your Fylgja will often be something that you don't really expect. Just remember to have patience and try to be a blank slate. You don't want to force them to be something that you want them to be, because it's just going to be issues down the line that you're going to have to unpack and deconstruct and that kind of thing. Even if it doesn't make sense, let them show you what they are. Let go of your preconceptions and just let it happen. So when meditating and journeying, you can travel and simply see where you end up. Or you can head to a place I like to call the Hall or Garden of the Soul. And that is an astral area or place that is wholly representative of you. Regardless, your Fylgja will always be close by, so no matter where you end up, you should have a relatively easy time finding them. If you do struggle to find them, one place I can't recommend enough going to is to journey back to a time when you were back in the womb. There, the two of you were linked, tied together intrinsically. That is where I actually went to find mine. And I'll always remember when I did. There I was, just this tiny little thing, and coiled around me, kind of like a shield, like wrapping around me, was this beautiful lime and emerald green serpent. She just kind of looked at me in the face, and I heard her voice in my head, and she just said to me, "I have been with you always." And I literally just like burst out crying. It was such a fantastic experience because it's this unique experience of meeting somebody that you've always known has been there. It's just absolutely beautiful. You won't really understand until you experience it, but I suggest trying it. Just go out there and give it a try. So, after that, you've done your meditation, you've found out what your Fylgja is. Now, what does it mean? Well, according to folklore, how your Fylgja presents to you and what type of animal it is will tell you a lot about you as a person. It was said that tame animals like dogs, cats, cows, boars, goats, and the like meant that the person had a more laid-back or calm nature. They were often more domestic and homely, as opposed to wilder animals, like wolves, deer, bears, eagles. They denoted someone that would be more adventurous or daring. These kinds of people would often be warriors, adventurers, or Vikings. And lastly, you would have your cunning animals. These would include serpents, fox, owls, ravens, those types of animals. And they would most likely signify either someone of mental or spiritual significance. They would often be sorcerers, seers, vulva, those types of people, witches, stuff like that. Sometimes it happens that your Fylgja doesn't really match who you are as a person. You might be saying, my Fylgja is very different from what I think I am. And that's okay. Fylgja are spirits and beings of destiny and fate and the future. And as a result, they often manifest as our potential. They may not manifest as who you are now, but as the person that you are meant to become. And that's where they can begin to share with us their highest wisdom. Now that you've officially met your Fylgja, you can begin to establish a relationship with it. And this is the really fun part. So, one of the things that I find bonds you the most is time spent together. Meditate with them, or when you're going through your daily life, be conscious of the fact that they're there with you. This can be an interesting thing as you'll begin to notice them more. So a lot of practitioners will begin to feel little like snoot boops on the back of their legs periodically as they're going out throughout the day, like there's a little animal walking behind them. Or they'll hear phantom like footsteps or like nails clicking on the floor. You might feel little feet or claws like perched on your shoulder. Mine specifically likes to coil itself around my left arm and will just kind of nap there and just kind of hang out there. Or she'll kind of come up and then place her little head on on top of mine and just kind of watch what I'm doing. It's actually really cute. But just be conscious of them as you go about your life, and you'll begin to feel them more around you. So another bonding technique is to learn about the specific type of animal that they are. So what are their correspondences, habits, or behaviors? What do they like? Understanding more about their nature and what they represent can tell you a lot about them. Another way that you can go about deepening your bond is by making a place on your altar for them. There you can leave little gifts or offerings that you think that they might like, or just use it as a physical space to represent them, to have that be a physical manifestation of them within your life. It helps to acknowledge them and keep them present within your practice as well. So you've established the connection and would like to learn from your Fylgja and begin to incorporate them into your practice. How do you do it? Well, Fylgja are a lot like ancestors because they're usually always looking out for your best interest. They want you to succeed, they want you to be safe, and they want you to fulfill that grand design that the universe has planned for you. So what I like to do is I like to incorporate her mind specifically as an extra layer of protection. When I go into a working, she will often encircle me and kind of stand sentinel, making sure that anything shady or shifty that might try to come my way is kept at bay and just kind of acts as a guardian. Or in situations where I'm out and about, she will often uncoil from my arm and just kind of poise to strike at something that might be coming at me, just to kind of get a warning that, like, you don't want to mess with me. This is also a great way of getting a heads up when things might be not vibing right, or where you might be in a situation where you need to put up your guard. Another way Fylgja can assist you is by being a guide when traveling or meditating. You can often tell them where you'd wish to go and follow them, and they usually end up taking you exactly where you need to be. I know when I do, at least, I always end up where I'm supposed to be. They can also act as a catalyst for traveling, using them to enter into liminal spaces or to pass to the other side. So some practitioners will often ride their Fylgja to assist them to making it to the other side. One way specifically I've incorporated my Fylgja into this practice is that she opens liminal gateways for me. So what she'll do is she'll uncoil from my arm, she'll encircle me, and then she'll bite her own tail, creating a symbol of the Ouroboros. And then from that, we'll open a gateway, almost like a portal, that I can travel through to the other side, which is actually cool. Another way that they can assist you within your practice is as an intermediary. If spirits, the divine, or something else out there is trying to get your attention, your Fylgja can often act as a messenger or signaling device that someone is trying to communicate with you. I know mine will often kind of like constrict my arm, learning me to kind of like pay attention to the signs that are happening around me that I might be missing, or to let me know that someone wants to talk. They can also do the same for you. So if you want to get the attention of another practitioner, or if you want to seek out a specific spirit out there within the ether, you can send your Fylgja off to find them throughout the spiritual planes, track them down, and get their attention or bring them back to you. And lastly, and probably most importantly, your Fylgja is filled with an immense amount of wisdom. They are a representation of everything that you are meant to become. They are an aspect of your higher self, your entire potential. So follow their example. Look to their associations, correspondences, and characteristics. How do they represent what's their nature, and simply begin to incorporate those behaviors or aspects within your daily life. Begin to mimic how they kind of move through things. Incorporate those associations and see how your life begins to change. And trust me, it will begin to change dramatically. You'll begin to see yourself become more you than you've ever been. And it's just a really fantastic experience. So if you're going to work with Fylgja, that's kind of the one thing that you want to take away from it the most. So if you're interested in learning more about yourself and beginning to work with spirits, seek out your Fylgja and start working with them. If you treat them respectfully, heed their wisdom, and look to them for growth and understanding, you won't find a more dedicated and loving spirit, friend, and ally. Remember, they have been with you always and will be, even until the very end. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you would like to progress a bit more with this pagan, please subscribe as I try to post magical content at least once a month. I know I've been really bad, but sometimes I do more than once a month. If you have any questions, feel free to post them down below in the comments and I will do my best to answer them. If you like this video, thumbs ups are always appreciated. I hope to see you guys in another video soon, and as always, may your path always be interesting, as there's nothing worse than being bored. Have a good one, guys.